This once.
2, 1. Hello, everybody. Okay, so what we're going to say is, hello, everybody. This is Mr. Mark Reeds. This is Mr. Mark, and we are JT and Maggie.
Okay.
Okay, so ready? 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Mark Reeds. This is Mr. Mark. I'm JT. And I am Maggie. Hope you enjoy. Okay, then we walk up, okay?
Yeah, that's good.
So do it. Hi, everybody. This is Mr. Mark Reeds. This is Mr. Mark. I am JT. And I am Maggie. Hope you enjoy. Yeah. The Sherlock? No. A Leprechaun Story.
Good.
So this is the Leprechaun Story. It's a story by one of my favorite authors, Richard Kennedy. So here we go. In fair Ireland, there came along a country road, a village workman, strolling at his ease and looking about to see what profit might come of it. And he poked his cane about himself, thinking all the while how generous and lovely the world was to a fellow who was quick with his wits. And presently he was walking alongside some bushes, and he heard a soft humming sound from the other side. So with care not to make a sound himself, he parted the branches to see the matter of it. And right there was sitting a leprechaun busy at making a small pair of soft boots, for leprechauns are shoemakers to the fairies, as you might know. "Ah!" cries the workman, with a great shout, jumping through the bushes. "There ye be, me little imp, and me eyes are right on ye, till ye take me to the golden treasure." For that is the way of it if you come upon a leprechaun. If you keep your eyes on him and you do not close them, or you do not look away, then he must take you to the golden treasure. But the leprechaun will try to trick you into looking away. So the leprechaun looks up and says, "Faith, and it's the truth, I must take you to the gold, but you'll have no use for the gold if you don't look out for that tree that's about to fall on yourself." "Oh, bad luck to you, leprechaun," says a workman. "Do you think you'll be tricking me so easy?" And he did not look around for any fallen tree, but he kept his eyes right on the little man. "Oh, you may be clever," says the leprechaun, "but not so clever enough to keep that tiger from leaping on your back." "Ugh, there's a feeble trick," says a workman. "There be no tigers in Ireland." And he did not look about for any tiger, but he kept his eyes steadily on the leprechaun. And the little man glanced down the road. "Ah, now there's a glorious sight," he says. "A prancing white horse with a beautiful girl riding and her hair blowing in the breeze. Oh, you come closer that time to making me look. But sure there are many beauties in Ireland, but I'll not be looking at this one. Me eyes be right on you." "That they are," says the leprechaun. "Another stitch at my work and it's off to the gold with us then." And he put his attention to his work for a few moments as the workman watched him, and with a final snip he was done with the boots. "There," says the leprechaun, and he stands up. But on that moment he jumps backward and cries out, "God's mercy, the devil himself has popped up behind you." "Aye," says the workman, "and he may have good reason, but away with your tricks, me little darling. I haven't blinked me eyes since first spying you, and now it's off to the gold with us." "Sure, there's no fooling you this day," sighs the leprechaun, tucking his needles in his belt. "Aye, it's off to the gold. Do you be ready for the journey?" "Ready as yourself," says the workman, "and please your tininess. Just walk in front where I can keep me eyes right on you." And so off they went, not on the roadway, but across the lovely green countryside. And soon they came upon a rope bridge stretched over a small river. And the leprechaun crossed first very carefully. And as the tradesman was walking across the swinging bridge, the leprechaun says, "Watch your feet or you'll be falling." But the workman crossed safely without taking his eyes off the little man at all. And then a shallow lake stood in their way, a short distance onward, and a flat-bottomed boat was pulled up on the shore. So boarding it, the leprechaun handed the workman a pole and took one himself, and they proceeded to push themselves across the lake. And in the center of the lake, the boat tipped dangerously to one side. And the leprechaun cries out, "Look to your pole, we tip it over." But the workman stared straight at the leprechaun, and the boat righted itself, and they landed safely on the farther shore. And next they came to this small canyon, and a rope was fastened to a high tree branch on which they could swing across. And the leprechaun did so and landed lightly on the other side, and he swung the rope back to the workman, who then pushed off from his side. "Now watch the ground when you drop off, or you'll be breaking your leg," scribed the leprechaun. But the workman keeps his eyes right on the little man, and he lands safely after all. So the last difficulty was a high cliff in their way. It was a dangerous ascent, and the leprechaun climbed slowly and carefully. And when he was at the top, the workman began his climb, and many times the leprechaun called down to him to watch his hand and mind his feet and be careful of this or that loose rock, and to give him good advice on regarding broken necks and cracked skulls. But still the workman would not take his eyes off the leprechaun, and finally he made it safely to the top, and there they sat down and rested. "Whew," says the leprechaun, "you'd be a greedy man to go along so blindly in all those dangers." "Call it what you will," says the workman, "and now for the gold according to the rules." "Aye," says the leprechaun, "and you deserve it, the whole pot of gold. Yet it's very sad I am for the woman." What woman is that you speak of?" "The poor woman I was thinking to give the gold to before you discovered me. So needy she is, and such a fine soul." "Ah, truth. Many people are poor," says the workman. "Truth indeed," says the leprechaun. "But for this poor woman, it's been just one misfortune after another. Close your eyes and picture how it is with her while I tell you the story of it." "It's very well. I can picture the story with me eyes wide open and looking right at you." "As you say," says the leprechaun. Well, she lives in a hut that's no more than a patch on the ground, and she has 5 children, and her husband was made blind when he was kicked in the head by a horse." "Ah, now there's a shame," says the workman, "but it's lucky she is to be alive, and a horse is always valuable." "Aye, that it is, but the horse broke his leg when he kicked the man and had to be put out of his pain, you know, and then the man went walking into the well, and well, that was it for him. But the poor family surely was left with a cow at least," asked the workman. "Faith, you might call it a cow," says the leprechaun, "but it wouldn't give any milk, and it couldn't be turned with a switch or any amount of hollering. And then the heathen beast wandered into the forest and got lost, but not before it trampled the garden down. So the poor family hasn't got a garden even. Ah, it's grubs and roots for them now," says the leprechaun, "and sore hungry the children are. The oldest is only 8, and none of them have any shoes, and the poor baby hasn't any clothes at all." "Oh, now that's pitiful," says the workman, taking a handkerchief out and touching the corner of his eye. "I was a poor lad myself." "Well, then you have the heart to understand. The baby crawls about on the filthy floor when the poor woman is out digging the grubs, and it's terrible the way the rats are going after him, and the other children just sit about crying from hunger." "Oh, but sure enough they have a dog to catch the rats, don't they?" "Oh, they have, but it's only got 3 legs, and it's no use for it." "Oh, it's a sad story," says the workman, blowing and wiping his nose. No, and your own dear mother? Oh, this is like your own sainted mother. This woman is, the children are starving away before her eyes, sick now most often, in want of money for a doctor to attend to their fevers." And the workman began to weep softly. And think of it," says the leprechaun, "your own self, you'll soon have a whole pot of gold." "Oh," says the workman, sniffled, it's a strange world indeed." And the leprechaun nodded, and he says, "And then so needy for only 1 single gold piece?" "Aye," says the workman, blowing his nose, there's no understanding it. And now it's all your own fair winning," says the leprechaun, yet there's a small favor I'd be asking you." "Oh, what's that? What's that?" sobs the workman. So very little they have," says the leprechaun, and the poor woman's so weak she can't raise the axe to chop the wood. And last of all, they had to sell their cooking pot, and now the children have to eat their grubs raw and cold." Oh, this poor woman, these poor children. The workman sobs. For the favor then, says the leprechaun, do you suppose that when you take the gold, you could leave the pot for the poor family to cook their grubs in? Oh, yes. Oh, that's the saddest story I've ever heard. Merciful heaven, I'll leave him the pot. And he was so overcome by the plight of the poor family and his own charity that he began to weep in fullness, and he buried his face in his hands, and he shook with sobbing. And a few moments later, when he looked up, the leprechaun was gone. And then the workman realized that the little man had made up the story. There was no poor woman, no hungry children, no rats, and no three-legged dog. It was all a trick to make him cry and look away from the leprechaun. And then the workman put his face into his handkerchief again, and he cried and cried more than ever before.